T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris, this shit's fun.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris, this shit's fun.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Happy holidays. Hope you guys had a very wonderful Christmas. Let me tell you a team who didn't have a great Christmas, though. The Kansas City Chiefs. You know, when I woke up, it was 3:16 p.m. And I went to check the score of the Raiders-Chiefs game, and I was expecting the Chiefs to be blowing them boys out. I thought I wasn't going to have a reason to tune into that game, but Lord and behold, the Raiders had the lead on Kansas City, and I was like, man, they just had to give me a reason to tune in today, did they? And we're going to talk about that loss and why it's really disturbing for Kansas City. And then Baltimore, I told y'all last week that the Ravens were going to get it done. I'm not finna bet against my boy Lamarvelous. I told y'all this. I was going with Baltimore because I trust Lamar. And what happened? Well, the Ravens gave those boys a primetime smackdown on Christmas. Got some thoughts on those games, and I'm going to be breaking down the NFL's most crucial matchups with big playoff implications going into Week 16. If you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that every episode of the podcast that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. Give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Share the pod with your friends, family members, and acquaintances if you enjoy. And let's talk some football, man. It's been a while. So, this 49ers-Ravens game had me so excited because a lot of people were saying how these were two of the best teams in the NFL, 1 seed versus 1 seed, potential Super Bowl preview, and I was incredibly disappointed with the way this game went. I mean, the Ravens came, saw, and they conquered. All right, and I went with the Ravens to win this game for one person and one person only, and that was Lamarvelous. And for all you guys who keep on saying that Lamar Jackson can't throw, Lamar Jackson is a running back, those jokes aren't funny anymore. Give this man Lamar Jackson his respect. And it's funny how now all of a sudden, the whole entire national media wants to hop on the Lamar Jackson fan club like they weren't just saying how he was overrated and how he wasn't that good a couple of months ago. I see how people have changed their tone. Shannon Sharp. I mean, Lamar Jackson tonight showed the whole entire NFL world why he is the, without a question, front runner to win NFL MVP. It doesn't matter about stats. If you watch the game, you would know that Lamar Jackson was not only the best player on the Ravens, but he was the best player on the field in this matchup. And it wasn't even close. He was running around, extending plays, picking up yards with his legs. If I was a defensive coordinator having to call plays against Lamar Jackson, I would be incredibly annoyed against this dude. Because anytime you got the wide receivers covered, Lamar Jackson buys time to get guys open. And then when you think that you have completely no room for anybody to get open, this dude is picking up first down with his legs on 3rd and 16. There was one run that he had before halftime that led to the Ravens getting a field goal where it was 3rd and 16. He moves outside the pocket, nobody's open, and this dude is making guys miss, picking up yards with his legs. He's been the best quarterback in the NFL this year. Fuck what the stats say. If you watch these games, Lamar Jackson will obviously fit the definition of what it means to be the most valuable player in the National Football League. The last 2 seasons, the Ravens have been in contention for the 1 seed, but the only difference has been Lamar Jackson getting injured in the second half of the previous 2 seasons. But when he's been healthy, the Ravens are always in that conversation to have the best record in the AFC conference. The 49ers, the majority of America, picked these boys to get it done. And it mainly was because of how good their defense looks on paper, how great Brock Purdy has played. And we didn't see none of that tonight. Okay, or last night, excuse me. I mean, that 49ers defense, outside of the pass rush, that secondary is Swiss cheese. That secondary couldn't stop none of these wide receivers in this game. And when their pass rush isn't able to get consistent pressure on the quarterback, their secondary gets exposed. Ambry Thomas got exposed. Travarius Ward has been getting exposed all season long. You had some questionable calls from the referees on this defense. Some of them I agree with. Some of them I was like, you could have went without calling that. But this defense had penalties. They had some pass interference calls, some holding penalties. This secondary against these Ravens wide receivers, they just weren't able to get any key stops. Or they weren't able to stop the bleeding in a sense. And this addition of hiring Todd Monken in the offseason has to be one of the most crucial staff hirings this season. Because Lamar Jackson has taken Lamar Jackson, who already was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, It made him damn near unstoppable. The receivers are covered. It doesn't matter. Lamar Jackson's going to pick it up with his legs. Oh, you want to slow down Lamar Jackson, force him to beat you from inside the pocket? He's going to tear you to shreds. This offensive line played one of their best games of the whole entire season. The 49ers pass rush struggled all night. Like, this is the best performance that the Ravens have had out of their offensive line when it comes to pass protection all season. Their offensive line has been amongst the best in the NFL. And we don't have a lot of truly elite offensive lines in the NFL this season. There's probably only about 3 or 4 teams that you can truly say have a great offensive line, and the Ravens are definitely one of them. For the 49ers, this game was a reality check for them. And I was telling you guys for the last couple of weeks that the Ravens were the best team in the NFL. And, you overrated Lamar Jackson. The 49ers are so better than the Ravens. What made the 49ers better than the Ravens? Because there was nothing that the 49ers did prior to this game that made me feel like they had a big advantage over Baltimore. What? They beat the tar out of the Cowboys? And the Philadelphia Eagles? Okay, cool. The Ravens beat the crap out of the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks at home. Well, JT, the 49ers are just so tough to beat at home. You do know that the Ravens only have 1 loss away from Baltimore this year? And what was even more crazy was all of the spicy comments that people were making about how San Francisco not only was going to beat Baltimore, but they were going to blow Baltimore out. How disrespectful can you be? Not just to LaMarvelous, but to the talent of the Ravens. This is one of the most complete teams in the whole entire NFL. From a name perspective, there are a lot of guys on this Ravens defense and probably on the Ravens offense that the average fan probably doesn't know about. Like, do you know about Justin Madubuike, who was playing like an all-pro this year? Did you know that Jadeveon Clowney is having the best season of his whole entire NFL career? And this guy's been in the league since first got into middle school? The Baltimore Ravens in this game put out a masterclass performance. Not just when it comes to how they played on the field, but when it comes to the coaching staff as well. This looked like a absolute mismatch. Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDonald, Todd Monken were coaching circles around Kyle Shanahan's staff. Steve Wilkes had no answers for Baltimore's offense. Baltimore's passing attack did whatever they wanted to do all night against this 49ers secondary. And it was because the 49ers pass rush didn't show up. Offensively, Todd Monken, this dude is a revelation. And I hope that this dude doesn't take any head coaching jobs anytime soon. I don't think he's going to become a head coach. The dude is a little bit up there in age. But you never know. You're never too old to become a head coach in the National Football League. But the job that he's done with this Ravens offense has been phenomenal. All right, there is nothing that Baltimore can't do offensively. You take away the run game, because they didn't have any success too much on the ground in this matchup. They had under 100 yards rushing, but Lamar Jackson dissected this secondary. And then the defense, oh my goodness, they forced 4 interceptions on Brock Purdy. And I know that the narrative after this game is that Brock Purdy's overrated. He got exposed. Why can't we just give the Ravens defense props for being the best defense in the National Football League? Because statistically, they ranked number 1 in several categories, including points per game. Kyle Hamilton, when he was coming out of the draft, like a couple of years ago out of Notre Dame, I had him as a top 5 player that year. He can play in the box. He can play single high, double high safety. Like, people were questioning if Kyle Hamilton was just a Jamal Adams 2.0. Nobody really thought that he would be able to be a great safety if he had to play in the 2-high single safety kind of system that wasn't going to utilize him primarily in the box. But the Ravens defense, what they've done with him schematically, has really showcased his full skill set, his full ability. This dude is rangy. He's a great tackler when it comes to run support. He's also really fantastic in coverage. I don't think enough people realize just how good of a coverage safety Kyle Hamilton is. Yeah, he's lengthy and he may not strike you as a guy who's going to have quick hips and crazy change of direction. But this dude is a smooth operator at that safety spot. And he's a key piece to why this Ravens defense has been as good as what it's been this season. Brock Purdy, I don't think he got exposed too much. I just think that the 49ers ran into an avalanche Monday night. And that avalanche was the Baltimore Ravens. People seem to forget that the 49ers weren't the only team that was the most talented team in the NFL. Like, I think a lot of people are more surprised that the Ravens won this game than they are the 49ers losing. Like, there's people who don't even know how good the Ravens have been defensively this year because everybody has been so enamored with Brock Purdy and the 49ers blowing out the Cowboys and the Eagles, who at one point, the majority of people out there believe that either the Eagles, the Cowboys, or the 49ers were the best team in the NFL at one point. And it's crazy how the NFL world and the NFL media just changes their opinions with the snap of a finger. One week, the 49ers were the best team in the NFL. A couple of weeks ago, it was either the Cowboys or the Eagles. And now the Ravens give the 49ers an L, and all of a sudden, everybody's claiming that Baltimore's the best team in the National Football League. But if you've been tuned in, you will know that for the last 2 months, I've been screaming how Baltimore was the NFL's best team. Not only are they balanced on offense, but they can stop the run. They can get after your quarterback. There's nothing that the Ravens can't do. My only problem with Baltimore is that sometimes their secondary does have a tendency to give up a couple of big plays here and there in the passing game. Outside of that, this team doesn't really have too many weaknesses. Yeah, they're still a team that their success on offense at times is predicated on how effective they can be running the football. But in this game, they showed you that they don't need the run game to be able to beat you. Lamar Jackson dissected Steve Wilkes' defense. The Ravens are going to make it out of the NFC. No team has a shot at beating Baltimore other than the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are playing some good football. I don't care if they almost lost to the Chargers. All right, you can't judge a team based on one-off performances. The Ravens have been beating some of the NFL's best teams since the start of the season. All right, and Lamar Jackson is without a doubt going to win MVP this year. Brock Purdy, he's going to finish as the runner-up, and he should be. All right, this performance doesn't take away from what he's done this season. But Lamar Jackson, clearly watching this game, was without a doubt the best player in this game, and he was the most valuable player on the field. And if you want an example of how valuable Lamar Jackson is to the Ravens, look up what happened to their previous 2 seasons when he got injured. Before he got injured, the last 2 years, 2022, 2021, they were either the 1 or 2 seed midway through the season. Then he goes down and their season goes down with it. This is Lamar Jackson's best opportunity to win the Super Bowl. He's 20-1 against the NFC? At this point in his career, do you not know the level of dominance Lamar Jackson has displayed against the opposing conference? The only conference that really has a shot at keeping this dude from winning a Super Bowl is, the AFC when he isn't healthy. When Lamar Jackson is healthy and the Ravens get into the playoffs, they're a tough out for anybody. No matter if Patrick Mahomes has a fully functional squad or if Joe Burrow is fully healthy and has a complete team. This version of Lamar Jackson is better than the version that won MVP in 2019, unanimously, by the way. And this should be an easy, unanimous MVP selection for Lamar Jackson. The most valuable player in the NFL means that if you take that player off said team, they wouldn't be able to have that same level of success without him. The Ravens the last 2 years haven't had Lamar Jackson around this time of the season. And it's been a big reason why they haven't been able to make deep playoff runs in the past. Hell, they were fortunate enough that they even snuck into the wild card round last year and barely managed to lose to Cincinnati. So Lamar Jackson this year, you got a Chiefs team that's depleted. You got no Joe Burrow. Your biggest threat is Josh Allen. And that's about it. I like the Ravens' chances of being able to win it all this season. And like I said, going all the way back to August when I did my record predictions, I said that the AFC was going to come down to either Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow got injured, so by default, it was going to Lamar. San Francisco is still a very great team, and I would love to see this game played again in the Super Bowl because I don't think that it's going to go the same way twice that it did Monday night on Christmas. There were 4 turnovers in this game by Brock Purdy, and he's not really a turnover-prone player. And if Brock Purdy was to play this game a second time, I strongly would doubt that he would have the same amount of interceptions as he did in this game. This isn't the first time we've seen Brock Purdy have an awful performance. He stunk it up against the Browns. He stunk it up when they lost Monday night to the Minnesota Vikings. But this was the worst performance that he's had up to this point of his career. But he isn't a player that consistently doesn't show up in big games. All right, Brock Purdy is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL based on what we've seen him put on display this season. And one terrible performance against the best team in the NFL doesn't demean what Brock Purdy means to San Francisco's team. And I'm going to dive a little bit more into how I feel about people discrediting Brock Purdy, saying that he got exposed, saying that he got overrated. Like, I got a lot of things to say about that. But Baltimore, if you thought that they were going to get destroyed by the 49ers, you must not have been watching a lot of Baltimore Ravens football. Their closest loss was to the Rams. And then they had a disappointing showing when they lost to the Cleveland Browns, but that was a game when they self-imploded on themselves. Well, Lamar has no turnovers, and the Ravens are playing their best football. Receivers are catching passes. The defense isn't having any blown coverages. This is a tough team to beat. They're great on both sides of the football, not too many weaknesses, and they're very phenomenal up front on the line of scrimmage, offensive line and defensive line. And there aren't too many teams in the National Football League this season who have displayed the level of dominance that the Ravens have showed for the entirety of this season, pretty much. There was a point when the 49ers were on, a 3-game losing streak? And people were questioning how legitimate they were as Super Bowl contenders? You look at Baltimore, they haven't had those same issues. This team has been dominant since week 1. Now, all of a sudden, the national media finally wants to give the Baltimore Ravens some props. You want to give Lamar Jackson some credits. No, you should have been giving Lamar Jackson some credit after he won MVP in 2019. It's taken several years later for people to finally realize that Lamar Jackson is a fantastic quarterback. You know, like, if you talk about some of the most hated players in the National Football League, Lamar Jackson is up there. I've never seen a dude get so much hate just for being an elite quarterback. Oh, he can't throw. Oh, he's a running back. Like, shut the fuck up. Please. Excuse my French, but honestly, if you're still somebody throwing out these stupid narratives, I want you to please stop talking. Because at this point, you're a hater. Lamar Jackson has always been a really good thrower of the football. And he's always been an elite quarterback. The only thing that's held back Lamar from playing at the level that he's played this season has been the offensive coordinator. Which shows you just how important hiring the right guys on your staff is. The casual fan overlooks who's the offensive coordinator, who's the defensive coordinator. You know, like, a lot of people are seeming like they're surprised about how this game went. And I'm a little surprised that the Ravens won this convincingly. But I've never questioned what the final outcome was going to be. You can go back and watch my preview and prediction for that Ravens-49ers game. I told y'all, I'm picking the Ravens because I'm rocking with Lamar. I trust Lamar, and he came through tonight. Now, Mike Florio was talking really spicy about the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson before they delivered that ass whooping to the 49ers on Christmas. And here's the spicy words that he was saying before this game played, or before this game got played.
Everybody, that's it. As long as those people stay healthy. They're currently healthy. The 49ers kick the shit out of the Ravens on Monday night. I'm sorry, I know that's disrespectful to the Ravens, but let's be realistic. At home, they got to fly across the country on Christmas night, and the 49ers are waiting, and the 49ers are going to dismantle the Ravens. And if it's a Super Bowl.
So, how did that go, Mike Florio? Because it seemed like you got a slice of humble pie. Because instead of the 49ers clobbering the Ravens were the one doing the clobbering. And Lamar Jackson, he had a lot of things to say about Mike Florio's pre-game speech about how the 49ers were going to dominate Baltimore. And he wasn't happy with what Mike Florio uttered out of his mouth. The disrespect that he spat out towards the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. Because we in the NFL, we play ball, not to take away from that team, but you can't just discredit us. We grown, man. We got to feed our family. And he can have his opinion, but just don't be just talking like that. That's disrespectful. That's very disrespectful. But no, not to take away from the 49ers at all, because they're great all across the board, but we going to come to play as well. Our record not no fluke. We play ball, and we showed that, But he just need to just keep doing his job, but just don't just come off like that towards us. That's disrespectful, like I said, because he ain't putting them pads on. If he ain't putting them pads on, I feel like it would have been different for him. He wouldn't say that. He'd be respectful.
Yeah, Mike Florio, what's what you say about Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, acting like this was just a fluke team and they were a team of jabronis and scrubs? Like, some of the words that he was uttering out his mouth had me bamboozled, because the last time I checked, the Ravens had the 1 seed in the AFC prior to this game being played. And secondly, the Ravens were one of the most dominant teams for the last couple of weeks in the NFL prior to this game being played. They got just as many dominant wins as what the 49ers had. So I never understood the sentiment that the Ravens were going to get the shit kicked out of them by San Francisco. And these two teams were way too evenly matched for that to even happen. Now, of course, the Ravens ended up blowing out San Francisco. Who cares what the final score was? Nobody's going to give them brownie points for a garbage time touchdown by Sam Darnold. You see, Lamar Jackson, this dude had a very great point when he said that, we're out here trying to feed our families, and you out here trying to make it seem like we aren't even going to belong on the same field as the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm going to ask you guys this once again. What made the 49ers such a popular pick that so many people in the national media were convinced that the Ravens had no shot at beating them? The Ravens have been just as dominant at home as what the 49ers have been. They've also been dominant on the road. Same thing the 49ers have been, and they both have two of the best rosters in the NFL. Like, Mike Florio and the rest of the national media got a slice of humble pie by Lamar and the Baltimore Ravens. You had people who didn't really view Lamar Jackson as a legitimate MVP candidate. You had people who still weren't really viewing Baltimore as a legitimate Super Bowl contender, believe it or not. Like, I've listened to a good amount of people say that the AFC isn't all that great, and whoever won the Super Bowl this year, it was going to come out of the NFC. Well, the Ravens winning this game now has people scrambling. Oh, who's the team to beat in the NFC? Is it the Niners? Is it the Cowboys? Is it the Eagles? Oh my goodness. You see, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have been the lone consistent team in the NFL from week 1 to going into week 16 this week. They haven't had a 3-game losing streak like the 49ers have. They haven't had too many questionable losses like how the Eagles and Cowboys have had. Like, the Cowboys lost to the damn Arizona Cardinals early in the season. Like, did y'all forget about that? I forget about that. And who did people have as a MVP candidate over Lamar? Other than Brock Purdy? Dak Prescott. Wow. And what has Dak Prescott done the last 2 weeks? He's looked bad. All right. And it's not all his fault, but this disrespect that people have shown Lamar and the Ravens all season long, I'm glad that Lamar Jackson keeps up with the receipts, because he showed those receipts after this game, and I really wonder how Mike Florio is going to respond to getting called out like this on his disrespect and his slander towards the Baltimore Ravens. I'm really bamboozled at the amount of people who questioned how good Lamar and the Ravens were coming into this game. Because I'm a Steelers fan, and I've watched nearly every single Ravens fan, and fandom aside, like, I would be the first person to tell you that the Ravens are without a doubt the best team in the AFC, and it's not even close. There was nothing that made the 49ers such a better team than the Ravens that people should have had enough audacity to do what Mike Florio did and go on national television and just say how the Ravens were going to get ran out of the stadium. Like, this was going to be a close game, in my opinion. Now, I didn't expect the Ravens to run away with it, but you know, that's what happens when you have a lot of turnovers and you're a team that shows up and has a better game plan and executes better than their opponent. Like I said earlier, if the Ravens and the 49ers match up again in the Super Bowl, I expect that game to be much more closer. Still going with the Ravens. Okay, I still believe they're the team to beat in the National Football League until somebody proves me wrong otherwise. But San Francisco, they got humbled in this game. They're feeling themselves. They had their chest poked out because they ran through the Eagles. They ran through the Cowboys. They've been embarrassing the NFC. But anytime they played a team that has had a physical, aggressive defense like the Browns or the Vikings, they've lost, and this offense has struggled. And the same thing happened Monday night when LaMarvelous and those boys ran into town, and the 49ers were an unstoppable force, but Lamar and the Ravens were the immovable object. And that's why the Ravens came up on the winning edge of things, and that's why they clobbered and cream pied San Francisco. Lamar Jackson, you know, I'm glad he kept the receipts because I've been sick and tired of people coming for Lamar Jackson. I've been sick and tired of people disrespecting Lamar ever since he first got drafted. Honestly, like, I'm so happy as a Steelers fan that people are finally putting respect on Lamar Jackson and giving this dude the credit he deserves for how good of a quarterback he is. He's the second best QB in the league right now. And you see, I got so much love for Lamar Jackson because as a Steelers fan, I would never get over how we drafted Terrell Edmonds over this dude. You guys don't know how excited I was when Lamar Jackson was still on the board at 28 and the Steelers had the opportunity to draft him. I was telling all my homies, man, we finna draft Lamar, bruh. The Steelers with Lamar, we're going to be unstoppable. And what do? We draft Terrell Edmonds. And he's not even on the team no more. So, you know, like, I always get a little bit obnoxious and a little bit amped up when people come for Lamar Jackson. This is my favorite player in the NFL, one of my favorite players in the NFL. And I've been supporting and rooting for this dude ever since he got drafted by Baltimore. Okay, I know as a Steelers fan, you're not supposed to be rooting for your rival, but I do love rooting for Lamar Jackson to succeed. And if the Steelers aren't playing the Ravens, I'm always rooting for Lamar Jackson to pull through. I more so don't root for the Ravens. I just root for Lamar. I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. I love Lamar. And I'm so happy that people are waking up to how good of a quarterback this dude is and how good he's been. The only thing that has held him back is not really having as good of a supporting cast as what he has now, and not having an offensive coordinator that's been able to help elevate him as a passer like Todd Monken has been able to do. Now, I want to talk about another quarterback who I get really defensive over. People have been waiting all season long for this opportunity to come where they can finally trash Brock Purdy and say, Brock Purdy's overrated. He got exposed. I heard Nick Wright early on the herd say that Brock Purdy is the wink link on the 49ers team. Like, what? How is Brock Purdy, a quarterback that's second in passing yards, leading or second in the NFL in touchdown passes, the wink link of this team? Oh, well, we saw what he was when he didn't have Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams and George Kittle. This is the argument about Brock Purdy that really infuriates me. Okay, because people make it seem like any quarterback in the NFL that's great can win without having a talented team. Do you not see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs right now? He has no great receivers. Travis Kelce is washed. His offensive line can't protect them. And they lost to the fucking Raiders the other day. But I don't hear nobody calling Patrick Mahomes overrated. I keep hearing people say, man, you can never count out Kansas City because as long as you got Mahomes, you got a chance. No, you don't have a chance as long as you have Mahomes. You have a chance as long as you have a great quarterback and a great team around him. Name me one Hall of Fame quarterback that's won with complete trash teams. You can't because there isn't one. The best coaches in the NFL have great quarterbacks. The coaches who win Super Bowls do it with good quarterback play. The quarterbacks who perform at the highest level for the majority of their careers play with Hall of Fame caliber players or at least have somewhat good teams around them. Tom Brady never won a Super Bowl with a talentless Patriots team when he had no offensive line and no receivers. Give it, the best quarterbacks can overcome limitations, but no quarterback can just overcome not having a team that doesn't have either a good offensive line or playmakers around them. Name me another quarterback this year that's played at an MVP level with no good talent around him. It's not Josh Allen. He has Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, the best rookie tight end in the league, and Gabe Davis and James Cook, and a fantastic defense. Patrick Mahomes previously had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver. Like, great quarterbacks need great talent to be successful. Why do you think Joe Burrow was so good out the gate with Cincinnati despite the fact that he had a trash offensive line? Because he had good receivers. He had Jamar Chase and eventually T. Higgins. Great quarterbacks can overcome certain limitations, but they can overcome having absolutely nothing to work with at all. Which brings me back to this point about Brock Purdy. Why are people using the fact that Brock Purdy plays on one of the most talented teams in the NFL as a knock against him, when all the other MVP candidates at quarterback have good teams also? Does Dak Prescott not have CeeDee Lamb, who's been a top 5 wide receiver this year? Does he not have Brandon Cooks, one of the best number 2s in the league? Does he not have one of the top 5 best offensive lines in the National Football League? Name me one quarterback this season that's played at a top 5 or top 10 level or has been better than Brock Purdy that's done more with less. You need a good team to be a good quarterback. I never understand this whole argument against Brock Purdy. Oh, well, he's carried by the team around him. You need a good coach and a good team to be successful in this league. Look at Justin Fields. People make all the excuses in the world for Justin Fields. Oh, he doesn't have good coaching. Oh, he doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. Which goes to show you how you need talent around you at quarterback to be good, to be great. Peyton Manning, you know how many Hall of Famers he played with? Jeff Saturday, Marvin Harrison Jr., Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, if you can consider him to be a Hall of Famer. Dwight Freeney on defense. Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 9 times out of 10, are playing with some Hall of Fame caliber players. Not for their whole entire career, but for a good duration of it. Tom Brady had Randy Moss, Wes Welker, future first ballot Hall of Famer on the offensive line that were protecting him for so many decades. Like, I get so annoyed with this whole Brock Purdy is overrated and he's only carried by the team around him argument, because it's bullshit. It is. Truthfully, you can't name me another quarterback that's been a Hall of Fame player at this league, that's won championships, that's done it having to carry a completely bad football team. I'm so tired of hearing this argument how Brock Purdy needs talent around him to be good. Duh! So does the rest of the other great quarterbacks in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches to ever coach the game of football. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. He played with 2 Hall of Famers. You know what happened when Patrick Mahomes went to the Super Bowl in 2020 and he didn't have a good offensive line? They got blown out by Tampa Bay. Do you not know what's happening with the Chiefs right now? With not a great group of wide receivers and a terrible offensive line blocking for Mahomes? Yeah, their offense has been terrible. So, how is it that Brock Purdy has his worst performance of the season, 4 interceptions, not making an excuse for the performance because he did play awful. But to try to use this and try to just base your whole argument around Brock Purdy being overrated because of this game is stupid to me. Outside of this game, Brock Purdy has been really good in majority of the other games that the 49ers have won. This dude threw 4 touchdowns against the Eagles in the Cowboys and blowout wins. He outplayed Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. I would take Brock Purdy this season over Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. Give me the dude who always shows up in the big games consistently. Hell, he didn't show up against the Ravens, but he showed up in the other big games that the 49ers have won this year. Other than this game against the Ravens, his second worst performance of the season came Monday night against Minnesota. And he also struggled against the Browns. But 3 games shouldn't overlook what Brock Purdy has done for the majority of this season. This dude is one of the best quarterbacks in the game when it comes to throwing guys open, throwing with great timing and anticipation, throwing with precise and precision accuracy. He can extend plays. He's really mobile. He's way more mobile than what people give him credit for. You can't say that Brock Purdy isn't that good because he's carried by the team around him. Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, take away their best players, and they wouldn't be as good as what many people believe them to be. Look at Patrick Mahomes this season. This is a down year for Patrick Mahomes. You want to know why? Because the talent around him is not that good. It's funny how quarterback is the most important position in the NFL. And it's the position that everybody gives all the praise and glory to. But yet people seem to underestimate how a quarterback is only as good as, the team they have around them or the team that they get drafted to. If you don't have a good coaching staff and you don't have talent around you, you know what you get? You get Bryce Young. When you do have those things in place, you have a quarterback who can overcome limitations. The better the quarterback, the more limitations they can overcome. But let's not make it seem like the majority of the NFL's best quarterbacks have played with no talent, because that's just not true. You see, people only judge Brock Purdy and say he's not good based on where he was drafted. He was the last pick of last year's draft. If this dude was a first overall pick, everybody would be riding his dick. Honestly, like how people ride Lamar. Like, you don't have to be Josh Allen, built 6'5", 240 pounds, and can throw the whole entire field to be a good quarterback. Drew Brees never had a great arm. He was never the most athletic, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Why? Because he went to a great coach with a great team, and he was a perfect fit for Sean Payton's system. Brock Purdy is a perfect fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do offensively. He doesn't need to be able to do all the things that Josh Allen, Lamar, and Mahomes can do. He just needs to play good within himself. And if he is a game manager, then he's a damn good one. People call Tom Brady a game manager for how many years? Same thing with Drew Brees. Who cares about being a game manager? Give me the quarterback who can throw accurate passes. Give me the quarterback who can win games. And that's what Brock Purdy has done. Jimmy Garoppolo has never been anywhere as good as what Brock Purdy has been this short into his career. And what's even more impressive is that this dude was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the 4th-string quarterback going into last season. Came in out of nowhere and balled out against the Miami Dolphins, having no first-team reps. Do you not know how hard it is to do? Do you not know how hard it is to get to where Brock Purdy is in his NFL career, starting out as the last pick of the draft? Mr. Irrelevant is a meme. People don't take that shit serious. He had a bad game against the Ravens. I'm not saying that he didn't. But all I'm saying is that this one bad performance doesn't mean that, Brock Purdy is a fraud. He got exposed. Brock Purdy is still a really great quarterback. He's a top 5, top 10 quarterback based on this season. And all the other quarterbacks who you guys will put over Brock Purdy haven't been anywhere as good. Jalen Hurts has sucked the last month. Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence. These dudes haven't been anywhere as good as what Brock Purdy has been. And yeah, people would hold those guys over Brock Purdy because they're former first overall picks. Like, when do we get out of the habit of trying to judge quarterbacks based on who they have around them, based on where they were drafted? Because it's just nonsense. There's never been a good quarterback in the history of this sport that's been phenomenal, that's had a Hall of Fame career with a bad supporting cast. Normally, quarterbacks that do more with less end up getting traded or going to a situation where they actually have a good coach in a good situation and they end up balling out, i.e. Matthew Stafford. People called Matthew Stafford overrated for years when he was in Detroit. His nickname was Matthew Stafford. Y'all remember that? And then he gets traded to the LA Rams. And the year he gets traded to a good organization with the Hall of Fame caliber coach, all of a sudden he starts winning. But I don't hear nobody calling Matthew Stafford a system quarterback. Like, Brock Purdy did not get exposed by the Ravens. The dude had a bad game. One bad game doesn't define you as a quarterback. And just because you're playing with talented players around you doesn't mean you're not a good quarterback or you're carried by the team around you. Like the 49ers, I doubt they would be this good with Sam Darnold at the helm at quarterback. When you have a great offensive mind, he's going to be able to win with damn near anybody that you have at quarterback. But there's been years when Kyle Shanahan has had Nick Mullins at quarterback, and their offense has been terrible. Y'all remember that year Jimmy G got injured and they had C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins in that QB? Yeah, they sucked. So this just isn't the offense where anybody at QB can have success. Oh, well, if you put me back there, I could be as good as what Brock Purdy is. No, you wouldn't, bruh. Shut up. If that was the case, why is Trey Lance now on a different team? Trey Lance had the same exact team, same exact situation that Brock Purdy had, and he didn't do anything with it. But yeah, Brock Purdy comes in, Mr. Irrelevant, fourth-string quarterback at the start of last season, becomes a starter, gets himself in the MVP conversation. Like, I get it. When it comes to the most valuable player award, okay, Brock Purdy probably doesn't belong in that conversation because he's not the most valuable player on the San Francisco 49ers, obviously. But let's stop trying to make it seem like this dude is a scrub. He's not talent. He has no talent at all. Being able to be an accurate passer and throwing with elite anticipation is talent. Not just any quarterback can throw guys open. Justin Fields can't. I'm pretty sure he would love to have Brock Purdy's skill set, couple that with his athleticism. Like, we live in the day and age of football where everybody thinks that size is everything, and it's not. Like, people still think it's the 80s and 90s, and you need to have a 6'5", 240-plus pound receiver, or you need to have a 6'6", 255-pound running 4.43 quarterback and Anthony Richardson at the helm to win games. You don't. You can still win in today's NFL with the top 12 quarterback. And that's what Brock Purdy is at the minimum. The NFL quarterback market is so saturated that everybody thinks that your quarterback needs to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes to be considered as elite. Elite quarterbacks don't come down to how talented they are. It comes down to how well they're able to play the game, how well they're able to understand what defenses are throwing at them, how they want to attack them. It comes down to being able to execute, and Brock Purdy does that at an extremely high level. Who cares if he's a game manager? Who gives a shit? Can you throw accurate passes, and can you win me football games is all that should matter, and that's what Brock Purdy does. This offense is way better with Brock Purdy at the helm than what it ever was under Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo was inconsistent, turnover prone, and he just wasn't that good. He's a solid bridge quarterback if you need a quarterback to start for you for a year or two until you find your successor. But Brock Purdy is the best QB that Kyle Shanahan has ever had since he's been the head coach of the 49ers. Like, if Kyle Shanahan was just a genius and this just was a plug-and-play system, then Trey Lance wouldn't have been the bust. He wouldn't be playing for the Cowboys right now. Before we move on, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that every episode of the podcast, after it gets aired live, is available in podcasting or on audio format in all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. Give us a 5-star review, share the pod if you are enjoying this episode. And Now I'm about to get into some Week 16 matchups with crucial playoff implications. Now, NFL Week 16. Let me start that over. I don't even know how I want to start this segment, man. How do you think I should start this? All right, I got it. What are the NFL's biggest Week 16 games that have the biggest playoff implications? Well, let's start off with the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. If the Lions lose this game, they're going to be eliminated from the 1 seed. Plus, if the 49ers win, that's going to automatically count them out. And if they lose this game and the Eagles win, then they're still going to be eliminated from the 1 seed. So this is a must-win game for Detroit if they want to stay alive in the race to get that 1 seed in the NFC. Same situation goes for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Detroit already clinched their division. The Cowboys, they need this win so they can stay on pace for the NFC East title with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if they lose this game and the Eagles win, then they're going to have no shot at winning this division. The Eagles are going to win it. But if they tie with the Lions and the Eagles tie, then they don't win this division and they're going to have no chances of being able to walk away with the crown. Now, if they lose this game also, not only are they going to have a chance of not being able to win the NFC East title, but they could be eliminated from the 1 seed with a loss. Or if they tie with the Detroit Lions and the Eagles win, or the 49ers win, and then they get eliminated from the 1 seed if the 49ers just win this week, which I believe they play the Washington Commanders. So the Dallas Cowboys must win this game if they want to stay on pace with the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC East title, and they want to stay in the race for the 1 seed in the NFC. Same thing with the Detroit Lions. Now, when we look at this game and break this thing down, this is a game that could go either way. The Dallas Cowboys, they've struggled the last 2 weeks. They lost to the Dolphins. Their offense really couldn't get anything going against the Dolphins defense, and they got blown out by the Buffalo Bills. Thankfully, they're playing at home, and they play their best football at home. The Detroit Lions, they don't have a great secondary. Their secondary is Swiss cheese. They can come away with turnovers, but as long as Dak Prescott and his Cowboys offense can take care of the football, Dak Prescott should have a bounce-back game. And he should have a way better performance than what we've seen out of him in the previous 2 weeks. Detroit, what they do very well is stop the run. They got the 4th best run defense in the National Football League. Tony Pollard and the rushing attack of the Cowboys haven't really been able to have that much success on the ground this year. So Dallas' ability to run the football isn't going to determine if they're going to be able to win this game or not. How they're going to be able to win this game is going to come down to if Dak Prescott can continue to play efficient, mistake-free football, and if these wide receivers are going to be able to exploit a really questionable and underperforming Lions secondary, because the Lions secondary is one of the worst amongst the teams that are in the playoffs or locked to make the playoffs. And the Eagles secondary is just as bad as what Detroit's is. So for Dallas, you should be able to have a big day through the air against this Lions secondary. Now, defensively, Dallas had a really good showing against Miami. They held Miami to nothing but field goals, didn't allow any touchdowns, which is huge considering how explosive and how dynamic Miami has been on the offensive side of the football this year. The downside with this defense is that that's probably the best performance that this defense has had when they've gone up against an explosive offense for the whole entire season. And I'm disincluding the second time they played Philadelphia, because Philadelphia's offense looks like a shell of itself compared to how that offense looked at the start of this season. When Dallas has gone up against a team that has efficient quarterback play with good receivers, they struggled. And this run defense isn't that good neither. What does Detroit do really well? They run the football with the best 1-2 punch in the National Football League with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. This is going to be the turning point in this game for Dallas. Can you slow down the rushing attack of the Detroit Lions? Because if the Detroit Lions are able to come into this game and impose their will against you up front, then you're going to be in for a very long afternoon because they're going to be able to keep your offense off the field and they're going to be able to tire out that defense. What Dallas defense does well is being able to get after your quarterback. And if you can't shut down the run game of the Detroit Lions and you allow this to be a team that can play a complementary style of football, then you're going to find yourself in a major disadvantage. Okay, because to beat Detroit, they've gotten in trouble when the run game hasn't been there. Jared Goff has been really efficient when the Lions don't have to ask him to go out there and win games. And there was a stretch after Thanksgiving when Jared Goff was really turnover prone. And when you take away the run game and you force Detroit to have to beat you with Jared Goff, I'm not saying that they're not capable of being able to win games behind the arm of Jared Goff. But what I am saying is that Jared Goff, if you put the ball in his hands and you say, hey, Jared, go win us the game, he isn't going to be able to come through for you consistently as what you would like him to be able to, as opposed to some of the other good quarterbacks in the NFL like Mahomes, Lamar, and Joe Burrow. You can ask them to win you a game and they can get it done for you consistently. You're not going to have any questions about their ability to do that. But Jared Goff, there's been some stretches the last couple of weeks when he's been a little bit reckless with the football. But when this Lions offense has been at its best and they've been able to limit turnovers is when they've been able to run that thing on the ground with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Now, Dallas, to me, is the more talented team. They're the more complete team on the defense side of the football. They do a way better job at getting pressure on the opposing team's quarterback than what the Detroit Lions do. Their run defense isn't that bad, but it's in the middle of the pack. Where Dallas is at their best is where they can force you to put you in a situation where you got to air the football out to win. And although their secondary may get carved up, you know, you like your chances when you got a secondary that has Stephon Gilmore, DaRon Bland, and they are really good at forcing takeaways. And the more Detroit throws the football in this game, the more the advantage shifts towards the Dallas Cowboys. Ultimately, the team I'm taking to win this game, I have to go with the Detroit Lions. I know that the Dallas Cowboys are a really good team at home. They are 7-0 when they're favorites at home as well. But the Detroit Lions, yes, their secondary is a big weakness for them in this game. But how good they are at stopping the run and the fact that they can generate big turnovers and big moments, I trust them defensively. And I don't need the Detroit Lions defense to be all world. Okay, most likely this game is going to be a shootout. And it's going to come down to whoever can get to 38 or maybe 35 first. Detroit is more than capable of being able to do that. They can run the football. Dallas hasn't shown the ability to take away the run. And their secondary can be had. Okay, their secondary can be really undisciplined at times. You look at the wide receivers and the weapons that Detroit has. Jamison Williams is coming on. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a top 5, top 10 receiver in the slot all season long. You got Sam Laporta, who's going to be a mismatch nightmare for the Dallas Cowboys defensively. And Dallas is already a little bit beat up at linebacker. And I don't really feel good about their run defense against Detroit. So give me Detroit to get the win. 34-31 is my final score prediction in this game. I expect Dak Prescott to have a good game, but I think that defensively, the Dallas Cowboys are going to have a hard time slowing down this Lions offense with how balanced they are. The Saints and the Buccaneers have a golden opportunity to pull off something that not too many people thought they could have done at the start of this season. And if you would have told me back in August that the Buccaneers going into week 16, if they were to beat the Saints, they would win this NFC South division for a second straight year in a row, I would look at you and say, really? Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield are going to win the NFC South again? Now, albeit, you know, the talent is there, but it's just, who would have thought that Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield will be capable of winning a weak division when neither one of those guys are anybody that most of us had any confidence in coming into the season. Like, most people thought the Buccaneers were going to be tanking for Caleb Williams or Drake May, and that Todd Bowles was basically coaching for his job with all of the coaching staff changes that he made. at the end of last offseason. This Buccaneers team has been better this year than what they were under Brady. And with the win, they could clinch their spot in the playoffs and clinch their second straight NFC South title. Now, all they got to do is win this game or tie with the Saints, and they need the Falcons to lose. It's the other way that they can clinch the NFC South title. But basically, this game is simple for Tampa Bay. Win, and the NFC South is yours. Or tie, and get the Falcons to lose, and you claim this division again. Meanwhile, for New Orleans, not only are you coaching for your job if you're Dennis Allen, but you're also playing to remain in the NFC South title picture. Because if you lose this game or tie, then you're done. And you also get eliminated from playoff contention with either a loss in this game or a tie. And the Seattle Seahawks win or tie. And the Rams if they win or tie this week. So there is no room for error for the New Orleans Saints in this game. This is a must-win game for them. If they lose, their season is pretty much over. For Tampa Bay, you win this game, the NFC South is yours. If you lose this game, then things get a little bit dicey going into week 17, and you might not control your own destiny. Now, the good thing for Tampa Bay is that the New Orleans Saints have only beaten one team with the above 500 record all season long, and that has been the Indianapolis Colts. And the last time you played this team, you annihilated them. It was 26-9. And the thing with New Orleans is that this offense is way too conservative. Derek Carr is a check down machine. The only time he takes shots down the field is when there's just somebody running wide open or there's a missed coverage assignment on the defense. Todd Bowles' defense has been pretty solid this year. They haven't had too many games when they've surrendered more than 20 plus. They're pretty solid against the run. They got a pretty decent pass rush. New Orleans, their offensive line has been a little out of sorts the last couple of weeks. Against the Rams, they didn't have a good performance until later on in that game when they finally were able to get a little momentum on offense. But for New Orleans to be effective offensively, they need Alvin Kamara to have a big game. When Alvin Kamara's on, then that opens up room for the play-action pass game. And then you can get Chris Olave involved, who had a really good game last week. But the thing with Tampa Bay is that this defense, outside of them having a couple of blown assignments here and there in the secondary, this is as solid can be when it comes to defensive performances. New Orleans defense has played pretty good this season. That's one thing that you do have to give Dennis Allen credit for. This defense has been pretty good as long as the offense has been able to somewhat be a little bit efficient. But the Buccaneers offense, holy cow, like this offense has been hitting their strides the last 3 weeks. Like Baker has been in the kitchen and he's been baking up a lot of touchdowns. And that's a large reason why the Buccaneers are in the prime position to win this division. You see, we knew that this defense was going to be decent, but we had major concerns about this offense. And this offense, you know, they can't run the football to save their lives, but they can throw the football off the best of them. All right, you got Rachaad White, who's played at a Pro Bowl level. I voted him into the Pro Bowl. Don't know about you if you're a Bucs fan, but this dude is really good when it comes to making big plays in the passing game. He can take a check down throw and turn it into a 15-yard gain. He's also pretty good after contact. And if the run blocking was a tad bit better, he could be in the discussion for being one of the best running backs in the NFL this season. Not overall, but I'm just talking about based on this season with how productive he's been. And Tampa Bay doesn't need the run game to be able to beat New Orleans. Like, as long as Baker Mayfield can limit the amount of mistakes that he has and the Buccaneers don't have any self-inflicted errors, they're going to be able to win this game because New Orleans, they're one of those teams that they're really conservative. They don't really have great coaching. The offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, he's been another disappointment. Like, when this dude got the reins at OC when Sean Payton was leaving, many New Orleans fans felt they were in great hands. But this offense lacks any creativity. The only time this offense gets a little creative is when they put Taysom Hill at quarterback. And the fact that they got to put Taysom Hill at quarterback to even generate offense at times or to be able to score in the red zone tells you everything you need to know about this offense and their productivity this year. you're going to need Derek Carr to have a masterclass game against Baker Mayfield. And who would have thought that at the end of this season, we would be saying that Baker Mayfield has been the best quarterback in the NFC South? Like, if you're a Saints fan, you definitely have to feel like you've been cheated and you've been robbed by Derek Carr with the amount of money that this dude is getting paid. This dude is getting paid all this money to just get outplayed by Baker Mayfield. Like, Derek Carr needs to step the fuck up in this game, and he needs to go out and make some big throws, and they need to let Derek Carr let it loose in this game. Stop with all the damn checkdowns, and Derek Carr needs to have some balls and take more shots down the field. Like, this dude is not good when he gets just a little sniff of pressure in his face. He'll check it down. Like, this dude, for some reason, just refuses to be more aggressive. And it's hurt Tampa Bay. Well, it's hurt the New Orleans Saints. And Tampa Bay defensively, if you're Todd Bowles, the game plan is pretty simple. Take away the checkdowns, take away the short, quick passes, and force New Orleans to have to push the ball downfield. And if you ask me, Jameis Winston is better at pushing the football downfield than what Derek Carr is. At least Jameis Winston takes shots downfield. At least the offense looks more explosive when he's in that quarterback. I'm taking the Bucs to win this game easily. I've had a lot of confidence in the Bucs the last 3 weeks. They've won me a good amount of cash, and I'm not about to get off them at this point of the season. You're going up against one of the worst coaches in the NFL, an offense that struggles to have a lot of explosive plays generated on offense. Their defense is probably going to be able to keep them around in this game for a tad bit, but unless the Buccaneers just have one of those games when they got a lot of turnovers and a lot of flags get thrown against them, I don't see how they lose this game, and this is my lock of the week. Like, the Buccaneers are going to win this game, and they're going to clinch the NFC South title. There are some massive playoff implications on the line in this Raiders versus Colts matchup. Who would have thought that the Raiders a week ago would be in this situation when they still got a shot at making it into the postseason? Now, they are going to get eliminated from playoff contention if they lose this game. They must win this game if they still want to have a shot at getting in. And they still have a shot at winning the AFC West title if they are able to get Kansas City to lose this week, and they're able to lose, or if they're able to beat Indianapolis, or they don't tie with them. But here's the thing. If they lose this game or Kansas City wins, then Kansas City wins the AFC West just by default. Now, if they get eliminated from playoff contention, it's going to be because they lose this game. Now, Indianapolis, this isn't a playoff elimination game for them. If they lose this game, they still have a shot at getting in. But with the loss, they would be eliminated from having an opportunity of being able to win the AFC South title with the loss in a Jacksonville Jaguars win, which they play the Panthers, but they could be without Trevor Lawrence in that game. So Indianapolis, a loss in the Jaguars win keeps you from winning or having a shot at winning the AFC South title. Now, the Raiders, last week, they beat Kansas City, only throwing the ball in the first quarter. After the second quarter and therefore on, they didn't attempt they didn't have a single completion after that. They only had like 60-something yards throwing the football. Indianapolis doesn't have a great defense. The only thing this defense knows how to do is force takeaways. And when they can't come away with any turnovers, this defense has a hard time limiting teams to under 20 points. You saw what the Falcons did to them last week. Okay, they had a lot of success on the ground. Taylor Heinicke had a pretty good performance. So Aiden O'Connell, if there ever was a game for him to get back on track and to have a good performance, like how he did against the LA Chargers to a certain extent in this matchup, it could be against this Indianapolis coach defense. Okay, this Indianapolis Colts defense is not good. They struggle against the run. They struggle against the pass. They got a good pass rush. And the Raiders' offensive line, when it comes to pass protection, isn't that great. But for the most part, this is a game where Indianapolis, they definitely could end up on the losing end of things. Their interim head coach is doing a fantastic job with that team. He has that team amped up. He has them motivated to play every single week. Indianapolis is one of those teams that they're able to do a very good job at capitalizing off of other teams' mistakes. And like we saw when they beat the Bengals, when they beat Pittsburgh, if you lose a turnover battle against Indianapolis, 9 times out of 10, they're going to beat you. Las Vegas, their game plan should be really simple. Only throw the football when need be and run the hell out of the football. Indianapolis doesn't have a good run defense, so there's no reason why you really need to ask Aiden O'Connell to do much through the air. Run the defense down, run the rock down Indianapolis' throats until they show you they can stop it, which they haven't really been able to stop the rushing attack of any team they play. And then let your defense get after Gardner Minshew. Now, Las Vegas, their run defense isn't great neither, but it's not as bad as Indianapolis. They're like in the middle of the pack and rushing yards per game allowed. They got Jonathan Taylor back last week. This is a team that their offense is predicated on them running the football. Gardner Minshew, when you think of him, you think of somebody who's a solid quarterback, a solid starter. But if you watch Indianapolis play, the majority of the times they win in spite of Gardner Minshew. He's not somebody that's going to win you a lot of games, but he's going to lose you a good amount due to how reckless he can be with the football at times. He throws a lot of YOLO balls where he just says, fuck it, I'm just finna throw the football because somebody's down there. Somebody should be able to catch it. And that's where Indianapolis gets in trouble offensively. You see, Gardner Minshew, you need him to take care of the football. You need him to be a good game manager. And as long as you can do that, you should be able to win this game. Offensively, Las Vegas, they shouldn't be able to do much, even though you have a lackluster defense. For one, you can put a lot of emphasis on stopping the run game. All right, if you're Indianapolis defensive coordinator, your philosophy should be, you know what? We're not going to allow them to beat us running the football. If they're going to beat us, they're going to have to show us that Aiden O'Connell is the future at quarterback for that franchise. All right, and Aiden O'Connell, in games where he's had good performances in, it's been against lackluster defenses. As long as Indianapolis can force Las Vegas to put the ball in Aiden O'Connell's hands and force them to have him beat them, you feel really good about their chances of being able to come away with multiple takeaways, because this dude is still a little rookie. He doesn't really turn the football over that much, but it's like with the way he's played this season, you know, he's played like he's not trying to lose the game for the Raiders, which is what you need if you're Las Vegas. But in a game like this, when points could be at a premium, you're going to need this dude to step up and have to make some big-time throws downfield. Now, you got the receivers to do that, all right? Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, you like their matchup this week against the Colts cornerbacks. All right, nobody in this Colts secondary is good enough to be able to stop any one of those guys. So it's really going to depend on how effective Aiden O'Connell is going to be as a passer. And I'm just going to have a hard time seeing Indianapolis lose this game to Aiden O'Connell. The way this game is going to stay close is if this defense is able to tee off on Gardner Minshew. You do have a pretty good pass rush. You got Max Crosby. Your defense has played very well down the stretch, especially Jack Jones. You may finally have a good corner now. And you got Nate Hobbs. But at the same time, Indianapolis, I feel more confident about them offensively in this game than I do Las Vegas. And I just have to take the Colts because with Shane Steichen being their head coach, calling the plays for them offensively, I trust them a lot more than I trust the offense of Las Vegas. It seems like Las Vegas seems to have just thrown shit at the wall, and it so happens to find a way to stick. You know, you find a way to beat Kansas City with your offensive game plan, not being able to get any completions after the first quarter. You're not going to be able to consistently have that style of winning football against a team like Indianapolis that capitalizes off of other teams' misfortunes and mistakes. And they're going to force Aiden O'Connell to have to put that ball in the air. And I don't trust them as much as I do Gardner Minshew. All right, and the Colts offensively, this should be a game where you can get Jonathan Taylor going, you can get the rest of that run game going, and you won't have to rely on Gardner Minshew to win it for you through the air. And even if Gardner Minshew has a couple of costly mistakes, you know, Indianapolis, they're not great defensively, but it's not like the Raiders have a dynamic offense that can make you pay for having a lot of costly mistakes. This is still a fairly inefficient offense. And for them to have success, you're really going to need Aiden O'Connell to have a hell of a game. Green Bay versus Minnesota. This is the game where whoever loses, their season is done. All right. If the Green Bay Packers lose this game and the Seattle Seahawks win or tie, they're eliminated from playoff contention. If they lose and the LA Rams win or tie, they're eliminated from playoff contention. If they lose this game and the Buccaneers tie with the Saints and the Atlanta Falcons beat the Chicago Bears, they're done. And if they lose and the Saints win and the Falcons win and the Cardinals win due to strength of schedule or strength of record, they're going to be eliminated. And if they tie with Minnesota in this game and the Seahawks win and the Rams win, they're going to be eliminated. Basically, to sum all that up, if the Packers lose, they're done. Minnesota, if they lose, they're pretty much done. If the Seattle Seahawks win or tie or the Rams win or tie with the loss, Minnesota season is over. If they lose this game and the Seahawks win and tie or the Buccaneers tie and the Falcons win, they're done. If they lose and the Rams tie, the Bucs tie, and the Falcons win, that's the third way they're going to be eliminated from playoff contention. And the last way Minnesota could have their season ended if they don't lose this game is by tying in this matchup and having the Seahawks and the Rams both win this week. So this pretty much is the definition of win or go home. The playoffs for both of these two teams starts this game. This is already a wild card game in my opinion because the winner is going to keep their playoff chances alive and the loser is going to be going back home with their offseason starting early pretty much, even though you got one more week of the season. Now, who's going to win this game? Because this is a really tricky game to predict because Minnesota has a very good defense. Brian Flores has done wonders with that Vikings defense. But offensively, Nick Mullins, it just seems as Nick Mullins goes back there at quarterback and he just throws the football. He doesn't look at who's open. He just throws the football anywhere, any place, anytime. And against the Cincinnati Bengals, he had a lot of success doing that. But last week against the Detroit Lions, the fool threw 4 interceptions. Now, on the bright side, you're going against a Joe Barry coach defense. So if you're a Vikings fan and you're skeptical about Nick Mullins being able to win you this game, well, Joe Barry, his defense had Bryce Young looking like a stud last week. And I love me some Bryce Young. Y'all know I go to war for Bryce Young. But for Bryce Young to have the kind of performance that he had last week against Green Bay's defense is really embarrassing if you're a Packers fan. And going up against Nick Mullins, your defense is getting more healthy. You would think that your defense should be able to come out and shut down this offense. But one thing about Nick Mullins is that this dude doesn't care how he throws interceptions. He's going to go back out the next series and continue to take chances. And this dude takes a lot of risks. He takes a lot of dice roll throws. And Joe Barry, your defense is most likely going to give up 24 points at the bare minimum. The question is, can your defense at least come away with some big stops and crucial moments? Can Nick Mullins give you a big interception going into halftime and your offense can capitalize that and go into halftime with a 10-point lead? Because one thing about Minnesota is that you know what they want to do. They want to throw the football because they can't run the football to save their lives. It doesn't matter if you don't have a good run defense. Even if you did, Minnesota still wouldn't be able to have success running the football. All right? Minnesota is relying on their backup quarterback, Nick Mullins, the third or fourth quarterback that they've thrown out there this season, to be able to carry them to a win in a sense. And when I say carry, I don't mean he has to carry the team on his back because he is going to have Jay Jettas and Jordan Addison, but they're going to be without TJ Hawkinson. Green Bay defensively, all you need is for this dude to throw you a couple of interceptions and for you to turn those interceptions into points. You see, points off turnovers is going to be huge for determining if Green Bay is going to be able to walk out of here with the win in this matchup. For Minnesota and Kevin O'Connell, you're praying for dear life that maybe Nick Mullins, at minimum, throws only 2 interceptions. And your defense can bail you out when those 2 interceptions occur. With Nick Mullins, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he's going to give you the football. Because this dude, the way that he plays is just you ever seen somebody just play quarterback and just look like they're just throwing the football? They're not trying to read the defense. They're not paying attention to who's open. They just throw it to whoever. That's what Nick Mullins is at quarterback for Minnesota. So yes, the turnovers are going to be there, but with how bad Joe Barry is as a defensive coordinator, Minnesota, if their defense is able to bail them out and they don't allow any points off turnovers or they only allow a field goal for turnover, they could come right back out the next drive and score a touchdown on you. So just because you're playing a backup quarterback doesn't guarantee you this win if you're Green Bay. Your offense has to be able to capitalize off turnovers. And your offense has looked really good the second half of the season. Like Jordan Love, since Thanksgiving, he's been playing some outstanding football. And he already, to me, looks like he deserves to be the guy moving forward for Green Bay. And plus, even regardless of how this season goes, they're not really going to be in position to draft any of the top quarterbacks in the 24 NFL draft anyway. So you're pretty much stuck with Jordan Love going into next season. Against Brian Flores' defense, how is Jordan Love going to look in this game compared to how he looked the first time these two teams played? Because the first time these two teams played, Minnesota beat the shit out of Green Bay. It was 24-10, and Jordan Love struggled in that game. The thing with Brian Flores is that his defense is so aggressive and so fast that if you're Jordan Love, you don't have a lot of time to determine what you're going to do with the football. You need to get that football out fast, and you got to be able to get it out quick. The good thing is that if you get a Jordan Love that's played at the level that he's played at since Thanksgiving, you're going to have a QB that's going to be more than capable of being able to make Brian Flores and that Vikings defense pay for their aggressive style of defense. You see, the thing with Minnesota is that as long as you can pick up on their blitzes and you're able to have time to throw the ball and get it out fast, you're going to have the chance of being able to get big plays down the field. Prime example, remember when the Chicago Bears played Minnesota on, I believe it was Monday night. There were a couple of third and long situations that Chicago was able to convert off because when you have this aggressive style of defense, this no risk it, no biscuit philosophy, calling plays, if you're Brian Flores, you're going to have some chances where you get some all-out looks. Nobody's in the back end to stop anybody, and that's how you can continue to have success and to sustain success offensively if you're Green Bay. The run game, you got Aaron Jones back. This dude has looked phenomenal since he's gotten back fully healthy. So you're going to have an offense that is going to be at full functionality. It just comes down to the chess match between Jordan Love and Brian Flores. Can Jordan Love do a better job at handling the exotic blitzes that Brian Flores is going to throw at him? Because they're throwing a lot of all-out looks out there. You feel me? So there's going to be the chances that if Jordan Love can pick up on some of these blitzes, he's going to be able to generate some big-time throws to these wide receivers. And the wide receiving core for Green Bay has been really fantastic for them to have so much youth at that position. I mean, you got Christian Watson, you got Jaden Reed, who is a rookie out of Michigan State, who I really like. Still got Romeo Doubs. You got a pretty good young tight end. Your offensive line is pretty solid. So as long as Jordan Love doesn't get into situations where Brian Flores is throwing the house at him and he can't find a way to pick those blitzes up, he should have a solid performance. And I'm taking the Packers to win this game. Even though they don't have a defense, I don't trust their defense at all. I trust their offense to be able to make Minnesota pay for the turnovers that Nick Mullins is going to give them. And then before you're a Vikings fan, you say, man, how you know that Nick Mullins is going to turn the football over? Bruh, this fool had 4 interceptions last week against the Detroit Lions. He threw a couple interceptions against the Bengals. Hell, he should have had 4 interceptions against the Bengals. With the way he plays, he's just one of those quarterbacks that he just is super aggressive. Okay, he's going to push the ball into tight windows, tight spaces. He thinks that he can make every throw, although he may not think that logically, but that's just the way he plays. And I don't see how I can trust Minnesota with the QB that has turned the football over at this rate in his last 2 games against a team in Green Bay that, yeah, their defense sucks, but they got an offense that can make you pay if you give them some points off turnovers because your defense is aggressive. And with you having an aggressive defense, there's going to be some plays that you're going to give up that could be costly. Jordan Love struggled the first time he played Brian Flores. With the way that he's played the last few weeks, I expect a better performance out of him. Now let's move on to our last couple of games. The Steelers taking on the Seahawks. Must-win game for both of these teams. If Seattle wins, plus they get a Packers or Vikings tie, they clinch their spot in the playoffs, which is crazy when you think about how the second half of the season has went for Seattle. They were on a big losing streak, but then all of a sudden they got a big-time win Monday night against the Philadelphia Eagles led by Drew Lock, and they've started to make a late season push. Meanwhile, for Pittsburgh, you got a big win over the Cincinnati Bengals where Mason Rudolph, this dude just looked absolutely all world. All right. But despite how well Mason Rudolph played last week, you need this dude to replicate that performance this week against Seattle, because with the loss here, and if the Buffalo Bills win or tie, the Colts win, and the Texans win, and the Broncos lose or tie, you're going to be eliminated from playoff contention. You cannot lose this game at all. All right, a loss here ends your season. If you lose and the Bills win or tie, the Colts win, the Texans win, and the Jags lose, and the Chiefs win or tie, your season's done. If you lose, and in this third scenario, the Bills win or tie, the Colts win or tie, plus the Jags, and the Jags win or the Broncos lose or tie, your season's wrapped. So a loss for Pittsburgh would end their season. A loss for Seattle wouldn't end their season, but it would make things a little murky for them getting into the postseason next week in week 17. Pittsburgh, luckily enough, you got Mason Rudolph at quarterback. If you're a Pittsburgh fan like myself and you're wondering, man, is Mason Rudolph going to be able to play the same way this week like he did last week against Cincinnati? You should be feeling really confident about Mason Rudolph in this matchup, because Seattle's defense can't stop anybody. The only two things they do well is stopping the run and somewhat being able to force big turnovers. That's about it. The secondary is terrible. The run defense is terrible. And the strength of the Steelers offense has been their run game since week 9 with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. But with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, the difference between him and Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett is that Mason Rudolph, he's going to let that shit fly. And we saw that last week. We saw one quarterback finally figure out how to get George Pickens involved. And it didn't take rocket science for Mason Rudolph to figure it out. All you got to do is just throw that shit downfield to George Pickens and let him go do work. And George Pickens in this game, as long as Mason Rudolph continues to give this dude opportunities to get big plays downfield, he's going to carve up this Seahawks secondary. This secondary hasn't been able to stop a fly all season long, and no, we're not about to count what they did against the Tennessee Titans. All right? This defense played well against the Philadelphia Eagles, but that Eagles offense has struggled as of late, if you haven't been keeping up with Philly. Philadelphia, their offense has looked just as bad as what Pittsburgh's offense has looked the last couple of weeks. Pittsburgh, everything that they want to do offensively in this game, they should be able to do when you're going up against a team that's allowing nearly 200 yards on the ground per game, against a team that can't really stop a nosebleed in the secondary. Like, their secondary is in the middle of the pack, and they've given up a ton of big plays downfield. Mason Rudolph, as long as his offensive line can keep him upright, he's going to have a big day against the Seahawks secondary. I have no fear and worries about how Mason Rudolph is going to look against this Seahawks defense. Seattle offensively, that's the biggest key to this game. Because Seattle, you see, the Steelers offense should have success in this game against their defense, but I don't expect it to be at the rate that it was last week when they were scoring nearly every single possession. You see, Pittsburgh is still going to get a couple of stops on offense. All right, their offense isn't one of those units that's going to make you pay for having a terrible defense like Seattle's. They're a unit that, they're going to score on you here and there. And against this defense, they'll probably score on about a good amount of the offensive possessions, but there's still going to be some drives when the Steelers don't do anything. And Seattle has the more talented offense than Pittsburgh. The problem with Seattle's offense is that their offense hasn't played up to the level of talent that they have on that side of football. They got really great wide receivers. Okay, JSN has come on as of late. You still got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and going up against the Steelers defense. Like, everybody thinks that the Steelers have this great defense. When you look at this defense statistically, it looks really good. But the only thing that the Steelers have going for them defensively is that pass rush. If Geno Smith gets time to throw the football, he's going to have a lot of chances to get a lot of big throws downfield to DK Metcalf or JSN, because this Steelers secondary, outside of Joey Porter Jr., they don't have anybody who you can trust in pass coverage. Anybody. And I think it's fair to say that their pass defense is worse than Seattle's. And this is coming from a Steelers fan. And even with Joey Porter Jr. being the Steelers' best defensive back, I mean, he still has his fair share of struggles with not committing any costly pass interference penalties. And against DK Metcalf, Like, this can be a game where Geno Smith, this dude probably has his second best performance of the year outside of how he played Thursday night when they lost to the Dallas Cowboys. When you give Geno Smith time to throw the football, he's going to throw a really nice deep ball. This dude is one of the more accurate deep ball passers in the National Football League. And with the way the Steelers secondary has looked this season, I feel really confident about Seattle's success being able to push the football vertically on this Steelers defense as long as they can hold up against Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. That's going to be the big question. The run game for Seattle normally is how this offense is able to function at a high level. But with how porous this secondary has looked out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't really think that Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet need to have a big day on the ground for them to pull off the win. Because as long as they can protect Geno Smith, I trust Seattle's offense way more than I trust Pittsburgh's offense. And that's why I'm going with Seattle to get the win in this game. All right. Pittsburgh, offensively, they should be able to score points. Mason Rudolph, he won't have the performance that he did last week against Cincinnati, but it should still be pretty serviceable. But with the way this offense has played, you can't really trust them to show up consistently in this game against the Seahawks defense that, yeah, is not good, but at the same time, they can get a couple of key stops, and they got a very good defensive line in their own right. Seattle, offensively, they should be more efficient than what Pittsburgh's offense is going to be able to be. You're going up against a defense that the linebackers can't cover, the linebackers can't stop the run, the secondary can't cover, they can't stop the pass. The key to having success on the Steelers defense is by being able to have an offensive line that can allow your quarterback to dissect this secondary by taking shots downfield. And Seattle has the perfect team and personnel offensively to be able to do that. So give me Seattle. 24-17 is my final score prediction for this game. Falcons versus the Bears. Believe it or not, the Chicago Bears are still in the mix to make it to the playoffs. But if they lose this game, they're going to be eliminated. All right, and here are the 6 different scenarios for how Chicago can get eliminated, right? If they lose this game or if they tie with the Falcons, they're done. The second way they can get eliminated is if the Seahawks win or tie and the Rams win or tie, they're done. If the Seahawks win or tie or the Packers win, they're done. If the Seahawks win or tie and the Vikings win, they're finished. And then if the Rams win or tie and the Packers win or the Rams win or tie or the Vikings win, the Bears' season is finished. And it's even a phenomenon that they're even still in the mix to make it to the playoffs. So even if they win this game, there's not a guarantee that they're still going to be in the playoff hunt come next week in week 17. Meanwhile, for the Atlanta Falcons, just like the Bears, you can't afford to lose this game neither. Because if you lose this game and the Buccaneers tie with the Saints, you're out of the NFC South title picture. And if the Buccaneers win this game, even if you do beat the Bears, you're not going to have a shot at winning the NFC South. Now, realistically, the Falcons' best chance of making it to the playoffs is by them being able to get in with the final seed, which the Rams and Seattle are currently jockeying back and forth for, along with the Vikings and the Packers. Now, the Falcons are going to get eliminated from playoff contention if they lose this week, plus the Buccaneers win or tie, or if they tie with the Bears, the Buccaneers win, the Rams tie, or the Seahawks win or tie with the Steelers. The third way they can get eliminated is if they tie this game, the Buccaneers win, the Rams win, and the Seattle Seahawks tie, or if the Buccaneers win, the Rams win, and the Seahawks all get wins, you're done. So if you get 3 wins from the Bucs, Rams, Seahawks, no matter if you win this game, you're eliminated from playoff contention. This is a must-win game for both of these two teams. These coaches are coaching for their job security. Although Arthur Smith, there's a lot of confidence that he's going to return next year. There's not a guarantee that he will. They need to beat a Chicago team that has played some really inspired football on the defensive side of things the last few weeks. As a matter of fact, since Thanksgiving, the Bears have had a top 5, top 10 defense in the league. And anytime you go up against the Chicago Bears, it's going to come down to if you're going to be able to limit the amount of mistakes that you give up to them. one good thing about Chicago is that their offense isn't consistent. If you can keep Justin Fields in the pocket and you can keep him from having one of those games when he just goes nuclear and he just can't be stopped, you got a really good chance at beating Chicago, because offensively, the passing game is this team's Achilles heel. If you can stop the run, you can keep Justin Fields in the pocket, you can stop Khalil Herbert and the other running backs that they have on this roster, you feel really good about your chances pulling off this win. Now, the problem that people find themselves in when they play Chicago is that this defense is really, really good right now. Not only are they good against the run, did you know that Chicago has the Chicago has the #1 run defense in the National Football League? I did not know that. And what does Atlanta do better than any other team in the NFC South? They run the football at a really effective level. The problem with Atlanta is that when the run game isn't there, they lose. Last week, they won against Indianapolis because the run game had one of their best performances that we've seen out of the Falcons' rushing attack in the last couple of weeks. But if you can shut down the run game of Atlanta and you force them to become a one-dimensional team when they got to rely on Taylor Heinicke to beat you, you feel really confident about the Bears' chances being able to win this game. This defense, not only are they good against the run, but they're also good against the pass. Their secondary is playing well, and ever since they traded for Montez Sweat, this pass rush has improved tremendously. Like, against the Browns a couple of weeks ago, this dude had like 3 sacks. And the Falcons' pass blocking has been abysmal this season. Chicago, their offense against the Falcons' defense is going to be a big, big challenge. All right, and it's going to be one of the biggest keys to determining who wins this game, because I trust Chicago's defense. I don't think Atlanta's going to have too much success moving the ball on this Bears front, like we've seen out of Atlanta this year. And if you're a Falcons fan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you got your ass kicked is when you can't run the football. The biggest weakness on Atlanta's offense is their inability to have consistent and efficient quarterback play. The run game has to carry you. If you can't run the football, you're going to struggle to win this game. Now, luckily enough, you're going up against a Bears offense that isn't that great. And you're going up against a defense in Atlanta, that being Chicago, that Atlanta's defense has been really underrated this year. They're pretty good against the run. They're really good against the pass, even though their secondary isn't that talented. But they definitely can force turnovers just as long as, you put the ball in the air. Now, if you get that run game going and Justin Fields is running crazy and Khalil Herbert is running shy on this defense, then the Falcons defensively, they're going to be in a world of trouble. Because what the Bears want to do offensively is they want to run the football down your throat. But if you can take that away from them, same thing goes for the Falcons, you feel really confident about your chances of being able to stop that offense. The problem is that Justin Fields is more difficult to stop than what Taylor Heinicke is. In third down situations, that's going to be key for the Falcons defense, making sure that they can keep Justin Fields in the pocket and they don't allow him to get outside the pocket and make things happen, because that's when Justin Fields can become incredibly dangerous. This dude isn't that great of a passer. He's not a shitty passer, but he's about barely above average in a sense. So Atlanta defensively, with the way Jesse Bates has played this year and the way the rest of the secondary has played when it comes to being able to be serviceable against the pass, you think that this probably could be a rough game for the Bears offense. And this probably is going to be a rough game for the Falcons offense too. This is going to be a defensive battle. Neither one of these two offenses have good enough quarterback play that really gives you a lot of confidence that whoever can get the 21st is going to be the winner. Whoever can possibly get to 17 is possibly going to win this game. This is going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be defensive dominated. The Falcons got a pretty good front seven. They got a pretty good back end of their secondary when it comes to their safety position. Their corners, and AJ Terrell, he's been a little bit on and off here and there. You need AJ Terrell to take care of DJ Moore. DJ Moore is Chicago's security blanket. Anytime they get in a bind and they need a little bit of offense and they need a spark in the passing game, who are they going to? They're going to DJ Moore. AJ Terrell has had a down season. Like, his last 2 years have been really disappointing. The Falcons need him to take care of DJ Moore. If they can erase DJ Moore from the game plan, plus they can take away the rushing attack of the Chicago Bears, there's no questioning that the Falcons are going to win this game. But I'm going to go with Chicago to win just because I think Chicago has different ways they can beat you offensively than what the Falcons can. What do I mean by that? Well, even if you can shut down the rushing attack of the running backs, you're going to have a hard time being able to slow down Justin Fields. And the Falcons offensively, they're a team that they're a one-trick pony. If you can keep them from having success on the ground, they mostly lose the majority of their games. The majority of their losses have come when their ground game hasn't been productive. At least with Justin Fields, I have a little bit more faith in him than Taylor Heinicke or whoever else we could see at quarterback in this game for the Falcons, just because Justin Fields is better than Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heinicke, and he's one of those players that he may not have a pretty game from a statistical standpoint, but he's one of those players that can, at any moment, have a big run or big throw that can change the outcome of this game. So really, I'm going with Chicago because of their defense and because of Justin Fields. And I'm not expecting Justin Fields to have a great day by any stretch of imagination. It's just that I trust him more than Atlanta's quarterbacks. Going up against a really solid Falcons defense, he should be able to make a couple of big plays or two that change the tide of this game. And this game is really probably going to come down to 2 or 3, maybe 4 big plays. Who's going to be able to get more of those? I trust the Bears because the Falcons defense is good, but not as good as what the Bears defense is right now. They got a stingy secondary. Yeah, I think the Falcons are going to be in for tough sledding offensively. At least Justin Fields has the capability of being able to be your offense. And anytime the Falcons go up against a solid quarterback, majority of times they lose. Justin Fields is a solid quarterback. I don't think he's terrible. And he should be good enough, plus with the defense that the Bears have, to give Chicago this victory. The last game, well, not the last game, but close to last, the Miami Dolphins taking on the Baltimore Ravens. This is the biggest game of the year in terms of the AFC, because if the Ravens win, not only are they going to clinch the AFC North Division, but they also clinch a first-round bye in this year's playoffs, and that's going to be huge for them looking to make a deep playoff run. So if they beat the Dolphins, they get the first-round bye, they get the 1 seed in the AFC, and they get the AFC North. And if they don't win this game, then the Browns lose, then they still can win the AFC North. Meanwhile, Miami needs to win this game so they can clinch the AFC East, or they can get a Bills loss or a tie and still have an opportunity of being able to come away with the AFC East. But if Miami can win this game, then it makes that whole debate and that conversation for the 1 seed going into week 17, who's going to get it, really tough. Because it could go either way. The Ravens are probably going to have to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers their final game of the season, and the Dolphins are going to have to beat the Buffalo Bills to get that 1 seed, which is going to be really tough. And if you're Miami, if you win this game, then you don't have to worry about beating Buffalo and next week being the AFC East championship game pretty much. So if you win this game, you win the division, or you can win this division with a Bills tie or loss, which probably isn't going to happen. Now, you get eliminated from 1 seed contention, and the Ravens lock it up if you lose this game. So this is a game that pretty much determines who's going to walk away with the 1 seed. If the Ravens win, they get it. If the Dolphins win, then they still are in contention to get it if they beat the Buffalo Bills next week. Now, in terms of diving into this matchup, you know, the Ravens are coming off their biggest win of the season, trampling the 49ers on Monday night. Same thing with the Miami Dolphins. They beat the Dallas Cowboys at home, and their defense showed up and showed out in that game. They did a fantastic job against that Dallas Cowboys offense. Going against this Ravens offense, though, is a completely different animal, right? Because the Dolphins defense is playing at a really good level. But anytime they go up against an elite quarterback, they struggle. Last week against Dak Prescott was the best performance that this defense has had against an elite level quarterback, or a quarterback that's in that conversation of being elite based on this season. When they went up against the Eagles, they struggled. Against Kansas City, they weren't that great. this is going to be a game where this defense has to put it all together. Now, they do got a pretty good run defense. All right. They also are pretty good when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. They got a really good defensive front. And the key to being able to slow down this Ravens offense is you got to be able to get pressure on Lamar Jackson, not just on the edges, but up front as well. You can't give Lamar Jackson any room to escape, because when Lamar Jackson is at his best, it's getting outside the pocket, utilizing his legs. So the key to stopping Lamar is by making sure that you don't give him any room to escape the pocket. Your secondary should be good enough to hang with these Ravens wide receivers. I don't believe your secondary is as bad as what the 49ers secondary is. You got Jalen Ramsey, you got Xavier Howard. Your secondary should match up pretty well with the Baltimore Ravens in this game. Offensively, Miami, they haven't showed up in any game when they've had to go up against a good team. I mean, even last week, yeah, they beat the Dallas Cowboys. They scored 22 points, but if you look at that game, all those 22 points came on fucking field goals, man. Like, they could not score a touchdown. And once again, that proves my point about this Dolphins offense. When they go up against a good team, they don't show up. This offense hasn't showed up against any good team all season long. They haven't scored more than, 20? Like, they scored 20 when they got blown out by the Buffalo Bills. They scored 17 in their loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't have a lot of success against the Kansas City Chiefs when they played them overseas. Against the Baltimore Ravens, defensively, this could be the toughest game that the Dolphins have had all year long up to this point. Outside of when they played the Buffalo Bills, they got good corners and they got a fantastic pass rush. Now, what myself and many people thought last week is that Miami was going to get worked up front by the Dallas Cowboys defensive line due to the injuries that they've sustained on the offensive line. But their offense did a good enough job at being able to sustain drives and getting the ball in the field goal range. But against the Baltimore Ravens, you're going to need to come away with touchdowns. Because defensively, you're not going to shut down this Ravens offense the way that you did the Dallas Cowboys. You know, one thing about the Ravens is that this offense is at least going to get you 24 points. At least. The Dolphins, they haven't been able to generate at least 20 points in the majority of games that they've matched up against 500 or better opponents. Miami offensively, you got the ability to generate big plays on this Ravens defense. Yes, they are stout and they don't really have any weaknesses. When you look at their defensive line to their linebackers to the back end of their secondary, all phenomenal. But their cornerbacks do give up a couple of big plays here and there. And Brock Purdy did have success generating big plays throwing the football against this team also last week. When you look at this Dolphins offense, they want to get the ball out fast. They want Tua to throw guys open, and they don't want to ask him to hold the ball longer than what he needs to. The Ravens defense, if you can take away the quick passing attack of the Dolphins and you can wrap these receivers up after the catch, you got a really good chance of being able to neutralize this Dolphins explosive offense. You see, the Dolphins offensively, what makes them so tough to beat is because of the speed and how quickly they get the ball out to their playmakers. You see, the Ravens are a good team when it comes to not just being able to limit the amount of big plays that you generate, but they also wrap up pretty well. But one thing that I do believe is going to give the Ravens defense some problems in this game, and why I believe this game could be a lot closer to what people expect and why the Dolphins have a chance to win, is because when Sean McVay and the Rams went up against this Ravens defense, they used a lot of motion and it threw off Mike McDonald's defense. Well, no other team in the league runs as much motion as what the Dolphins do. Like, they're motioning somebody damn near every single play, either that be Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. And with those guys in motion, I wonder how Baltimore is going to game plan for that, because that's when Baltimore's defense has gotten in trouble, when they've had to deal with motion. Plus, there's a lot of speed on the field that you got to deal with. Not just Jalen Waddle and Tyreek, but also Devon A-Chain and Raheem Mostert. The Ravens got a really good run defense, but when it comes to defending this Dolphins rushing attack, you really got to make sure that you got a lot of close and speed on the edge, because you give a guy like Raheem Mostert or Devon A-Chain just a little bit of space and they can take it to the crib against you. Now, I like Tua Tagovailoa a lot, but this has to be a game where he comes out and he has his coming out party. And even for you people who are in the Tyreek Hill fan club, he needs to have one of those games when he goes for over 10 plus receptions and has 175 receiving yards. You're going to need that kind of effort out of Tyreek Hill, and you're going to need Tua to probably go like 24 or 32 passing for 295 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. That's the kind of offensive performance you're going to need, because you're not going to have a lot of success running the football against Baltimore. You didn't really have a lot of success running the football against Dallas. And your offensive line is a big disadvantage for you. The thing that allowed you to beat Dallas is that you're just so well coached and you just have such a great scheme that schematically Dallas couldn't find a way to keep you from getting in the field goal range. And they couldn't find a way to get the big stops when it mattered the most, because your offense gave them so many problems. Because the problem with Dallas is that, they don't really wrap up that well. And this secondary has a tendency to beat themselves too many times, costly penalties, blown assignments. They can get beat on double moves. The Ravens have a more disciplined defense than Dallas. And they have way more talent than what Dallas has up front. You got your Davion Clowney, Justin Matabuke. Like, there are tons of players on this front seven of Baltimore that are going to cause the issue for the Miami Dolphins up front if they can't run the kind of offense that they want to run. And Mike McDonald, he knows what the Dolphins want to do. So if you're Mike McDonald, you're going to have to throw in, or not Mike McDonald, but Mike McDaniel. There's so many you get what I'm saying? But Mike McDaniel, what are going to be the additional creative wrinkles that he's going to throw into this offense to throw off the Ravens defense? Because they don't have to really send pressure. They can get after Tua by just rushing 4. And their corners are good enough where they can play up. You feel good about Marlon Humphrey playing up on Tyreek Hill. Matches up pretty well. The question for Miami is Tua going to be able to have enough time to get the ball out fast? Is he going to be able to make those big-time throws downfield under pressure with multiple Baltimore Ravens pass rushers closing down and coming into his face? That's going to be the key. Can Tua make those big-time throws in the big moments with pressure in his face? Because that pass rush is going to get home. Your offensive line played very well against Dallas, but it's all because you get the ball out so fast. And the Ravens, with how aggressive this defense is and how good they are schematically, they're probably going to take that away from you. So you're going to have a couple of plays that you try to attack the Ravens downfield deep vertically with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and Tua Tagovailoa is going to need at least 3 to 4 seconds to throw that football downfield, or the Dolphins going to be able to give him that on the offensive line. I'm taking Baltimore to get the win. They're just a better team than Miami on all phases. And the Ravens play their best football at home. You got to be a damn good team to beat Baltimore. The last time I remember them losing at home was to the Browns, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And they lost that game because of self-inflicted wounds and Lamar Jackson just having a couple of questionable decisions. You see, the Dolphins defense, to me, has to be the reason why they win this game. And although they do got a pretty good defense, I haven't seen this defense really show up outside of how they played against the Dallas Cowboys. Going up against Lamar Jackson, it's a different animal. Even when you got all of his receivers covered, it's still tough to get them off the field. So I'm going with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to get the win. Although I got a feeling this could be a pretty tight game. I got the Ravens 24-20 is going to be my final score prediction for this matchup. And the last game that we got to talk about. The Cincinnati Bengals are going on the road to Arrowhead to take on Kansas City, man. Kansas City suffered a devastating loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. And right now, you don't even know if this offense is good enough to score points on Cincinnati potentially. Like, Cincinnati's defense hasn't been that good this year because they are very young in the secondary this year. A lot of new faces. They had to move on from a lot of vets. They also have some injuries that they're dealing with, such as losing defensive lineman DJ Reader. But with how bad this Kansas City Chiefs wide receiving core has been, and with the way their offensive line has played, Cincinnati defensively, they can keep this team around in this ball game. All right. And for Cincinnati, you're going to need your defense to be able to carry you in this game, because if you lose this game, and the Steelers win, and the Bills win or lose, then you're eliminated from playoff contention. So this is either win or go home for you, Kansas City. they can clinch the AFC West title once again with the win or a tie, or if the Broncos lose and the Raiders lose. So pretty much Kansas City win and they clinch their spot in the playoffs and they lock down this division for another year. Meanwhile, Cincinnati, you can't afford to lose this game, and you need Jake Browning to get back on that Linsanity level when he was having that Jake Sanity run and he was going off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, you're going to need that Jake Browning to show up against this Chiefs defense. Kansas City's defense has been better than the offense in certain games that they've played in. And this defense has carried this Chiefs offense for the majority of this season. If you can get the 27 points if you're a Cincy, you probably win this game. Patrick Mahomes and company, like, they're all out of sorts. And I know your secondary has been really inconsistent. You've had a lot of youth. You had some coverage busts there. But these wide receivers, I mean, they don't really know who they can trust outside of Rashee Rice. And even then, he's still not an all-world wide receiver. He's not at the level that they need him to be, where they can consistently target him, and he's always going to be instant offense. Travis Kelce, he's washed up. He's regressing. His offensive line is terrible. Jawan Taylor was one of the worst free agency signings of last year's offseason. And their left tackle situation isn't too better. Like, they're rotating those two tackle spots. And Joe Thuney, however you pronounce it, he hasn't looked good neither. And even though Cincinnati's secondary has struggled a bit, their defensive line is still good enough to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. You see, Patrick Mahomes, people keep thinking this dude can just pull shit out of his ass and he can just carry a team to a win every single week. No, he can't. If you're Cincinnati, you need to keep Patrick Mahomes in the pocket. Don't allow him to escape. Like, two of the most annoying quarterbacks to have to go against if you're a defensive coordinator has to be Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, because anytime you got the receivers bottled up, the play isn't over. They're getting outside the pocket, they're extending plays, or they're picking up yardage on third downs. You can't allow that shit to happen if you're Lou Anarumo. All right, third down comes around, you got a chance to get Kansas City off the field. You need that pass rush to get after Mahomes, and that definitely can happen. Like, you need to make sure that Patrick Mahomes has no room to escape when you bottle up these wide receivers. This is a young secondary, but they're not young and sorry. All right, they got some really good young players on this secondary who I'm really high on, like DJ Turner, Jordan Battle, the safety that they drafted out of Michigan, Daxton Hill. Like, they got some players in this secondary. It's just that when you got youth and new faces in the secondary, there's going to be some growing pains, and the Bengals have had a ton of those this year. But it's not like these guys can't play. Like, these guys all can play. And if they don't have any coverage bust, and Lou Anarumo can have these guys locked in, Kansas City's offense is going to have another struggling performance on offense. Regardless of you having Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, that just isn't enough. Isaiah Pacheco can't be your only consistent on offense. Now, the Bengals' run defense isn't that great neither. So if there was a game when Kansas City can have success running the football, this would be the game. And if I was Andy Reid, I would just scrap the whole entire offense altogether. I just would say, F it. We're going old school, West Coast. We're going to go underneath center. We're going to get a damn fullback in there, and we're going to run the football down your throat with that damn fullback. We're going to throw it back to the 80s and 90s, because that's what Kansas City needs to be. They need to be an old school offense, because them going three wide, two tight end sets, trying to throw the football at these wide receivers, it ain't working. And I don't know if you can ask Mahomes to try to pull something out of his ass against a pass rush that is really good, especially when your two offensive tackles are struggling and maybe be two of the worst offensive tackles in the league. All right. So for Cincinnati, your defense, I trust them to be able to keep you alive in this game. Offensively, you need Jake Browning to get back playing at the Linsanity level that he once was a few weeks ago. All right, he definitely has cooled off a little bit. He had a lot of turnovers against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's just the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jake Browning, for some reason, just doesn't have the recipe against Mike Tomlin's defense. But against Kansas City's defense, yeah, you are going to be without Jamar Chase again, but you still do have T. Higgins. You do have Joe Mixon. And your offensive line is playing a lot better than what Kansas City's is. And Kansas City's pass rush, to me, as long as you can take care of Chris Jones, you should be okay. Jake Browning, you don't really need this dude to be like Joe Burrow. to beat Kansas City this year. Their offense is going to struggle to get to 20 points. Their offense has scored more than 20 plus only a handful of times this season. So all you need is to get to 27 points. And how do you get that? Well, you ask Jake Browning to do what he was doing when you had success against Jacksonville and Indianapolis, which is utilizing the short passing game, getting a lot of quick throws to T. Higgins, a lot of screen passes to Joe Mixon. And Kansas City, they are a pretty well-coached defense. They don't miss a lot of tackles. But Joe Mixon, this dude has been like a damn freight train this year. Watching Joe Mixon has been like playing Madden 13. You ever play Madden 13 or Madden 25 and you could just run over anybody with the truck stick like you were Marshawn Lynch? Like, Joe Mixon is the biggest X factor in this game. Like, yeah, they are without Jamar Chase, but they got T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. That's two more weapons than anything that Kansas City has. So Cincinnati, they got a shot to win this game. They're going on the road. They got to play Patrick Mahomes. Their defense can keep them in it. The question is, can Jake Browning do enough to give Cincinnati 27 points? 27 points to me is the magic number for Cincinnati winning this game. Because Kansas City's offense is going to have a hard time getting to 27 points. Can Cincinnati do it against this defense? I don't think so. That's why I got to go with Kansas City. You see, if Jake Browning didn't have the performance that he had last week against Pittsburgh, I would pick Cincinnati to win this game. But you see, Kansas City's defense is really good, and they're also pretty hard to move the ball down the field against. If you're a quarterback like Jake Browning, you're a backup, and you're not one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the league. And I just don't really trust Jake Browning like that anymore, especially going on the road in Arrowhead. Like, listen, I get that the Raiders beat Kansas City in Arrowhead last week. I get that. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a really tough place to play at, especially if you're trying to win with a backup quarterback this late in the season with everything on the line that Kansas City has. I'm taking Cincinnati to win, and I think that this is the end of the road for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a good run, you know. They were a little bit surprising. They gave their fan base a little bit of hope when Joe Burrow got injured. When Joe Burrow got injured, I thought it was done. But I'm taking Kansas City to win. 20-13 is my final score prediction for this game. Now, before I end, can somebody in the comment section let me know if I touched on the Raiders and Chiefs game? Let me know down in the comment section down below. I don't know if I touched on it or not. I don't want to talk about it again if I already did, but just let me know. I don't think I did, but I don't even know if I had the graphic on there. But if not, I guess I'll talk about it later on tomorrow when we go live tomorrow. But if you enjoyed today's live stream, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that every episode of the podcast that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. I appreciate everybody.